Well, hey friends, this is Jennifer, and this is the Jennifer Allwood Show, the podcast for women who want to find freedom in both their life and in their business. I own a multi-7-figure-a-year coaching business. I'm also a certified life coach. So I have the honor of helping thousands of women every single month make money in the online space and help them to get unstuck from whatever is holding them back, all without sacrificing their faith or their family. In this show, you're going to get the very best life and business advice, always with a healthy dose of Jesus. So buckle in, my friend. I'm so excited that you are here. So yesterday we started my Level Up Bootcamp, and I wanted to share the recording from yesterday with you. I talked all about finding your focus in business. It was in particular for all of you who have creative, chaotic minds, just like myself. We're calling these Gen Talks, and your focus needs to be on the areas of your business that are going to have the most impact. I hope you're going to enjoy this. Glad that you're here. Now, who here is hoping to go to the next level with their business still for the remainder of 2023? Who here is hoping to go to the next level? Because it is wild to me that we are already in the middle of May. And, you know, our two littles, we have one in one at Dover College, one in college, one in high school, and one in elementary school. So we've still got two in traditional school, and they, they're getting ready to end their school year. And I'm like, how are we already in May? But I want you to know it's still very possible for you to hit whatever financial goals you still have in the last, 7 months that we've got of this year. So I'm going to give you just a 30-second bio on me in case you guys are new to me, because, you might just want to have some sort of reference so you know why I'm talking about the things I'm talking about. So real quick, I started in the online space 10 years ago. I've actually been an entrepreneur, started my first business back in the year 2000. It was a painting business. And about 10 years ago, I was shifting out of that painting space in Kansas City, where I had a team of women working in people's homes. And I was shifting into teaching people how to grow their business online. I was shifting into teaching people how they could do like a course and how they could do a webinar and how they could grow their social media. And so it's been 10 years that I've been like all in the online space. And many of you have, you've heard about my story about getting my first coach. You've heard about me joining a mastermind. It was 8 or 9 years ago, how I took out a loan for my first coach, but I made that back very quickly in 6 months, and then hit $100,000 in the online space in my first 14 months of going online. And so I like to share that with people because some of you are exactly where I was 10 years ago. You literally are kind of starting at zero in the online space, and you need to make a lot. Like I know for me, I was like, I have got to make back this $25,000 and I've got to make it back quickly. And I just want to be able to show people what's possible. We still have 228 days left in this year, if Siri is correct. And so we're not even halfway in. And so I want you to know you've got a lot of time left. And I hope that is an encouragement to somebody today. So here's what I know about the coaching space and about what I teach and how I teach. Sometimes getting to the next level does not mean a new sexy strategy, because the strategies are great. Okay. So nothing against strategies, but it's not always strategy that's needed. Sometimes it's training your mind to think differently. And so what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be talking about your zone of genius, and why leaning into that zone of genius is the one thing that's going to take you to the next level, hopefully. Okay? Not hopefully. We're just going to believe for that. So real quick, I'm going to pray, and then we're going to get started. So Father God, we just thank you so much for this time together today. Lord, we thank you for Zoom and Facebook ads and all of the things, my team, that make a training like this possible. Lord, we thank you that in 2023 is easier to do business online than any other year. We thank you for that. And Lord, you have got a lot of mostly women here. We have a few guys, welcome. But Lord, you've got a lot of women here who are expectant about their business and what the rest of the year holds in store for them. But I pray, Lord, that each of them would be able to walk away today with a new thought, a new idea, a new piece of clarity, a new way of thinking about something, Lord, that unlocks something both in their hearts and in their minds, Lord, so that they're able to think clearly. They're able to see a direct path. They're able to get excited about what the rest of the year has in store for their business. So Lord, we commit this time to you today. I'm grateful for it in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So let's talk about focus real quick. Okay. So I want you to know that I know when we talk about focus, that sounds really boring because it's like, wah, wah. Teach me how to do a funnel. Teach me how to do ads. Okay. So I know focus sounds really boring. But the truth is, a lot of you have already tried a lot of things in your business. And just saying that you're going to sell more isn't working. Doing what you've always done isn't working. You may be doing all of the things, but just not seeing any different results. And so then what happens is, and let me know in the chat if this is something you can relate to below. Inevitably, women start to wonder, what am I doing wrong? I mean, other people are doing X, Y, and Z, and they're having results, but I'm doing X, Y, Z, and I'm not getting those. And so then you start thinking the next piece is, okay, so what am I missing? What am I not getting here? What piece of the puzzle is eluding me because everybody else can seem to do X, Y, Z, and I can't? Everybody else is growing and exploding, and I feel like I'm fighting for every sale. Anybody relate to that? Let me know in the chat if you do, okay? So there's that, first of all, right? That you feel like you're trying a lot of things and you're getting discouraged. But then I want to know where my creatives are at. And so I'm not talking about you writers, you artists, you musicians. I mean, that's fabulous. But a lot of you don't do a creative thing for your business, but you have a very creative brain. You are a dreamer. You are a visionary. You love to coach. You love to teach. You love to create. You love to make. If that's you, I want to know if you're creative in the chat, okay? The truth is, most of you should probably say yes, because most entrepreneurs are creatives. And again, I'm not talking about artistic. Being able to dream of starting a business means you have a very creative brain. Being able to think of new ways of doing things means you have a very creative brain. So that's what I'm meaning by a creative, okay? I went ahead and looked up a little bit of a definition for you, okay? So a creative, here you go on the screen, is one who has the ability to invent and develop original ideas. We see the world differently than everybody else, than the average person. Can anybody relate to that? We do not fit into a regular mold. This is thought leaders or detonators, people who influence others with their talents and gifts. Now, notice that said that we develop original ideas. That's what the definition of a creative is, okay? Stick with me for just a second. It says we develop ideas. What that definition does not say is that we are good at executing on them. Because here's what happens for most of us if we are have a creative brain, which usually means a lot of chaos also, okay? Creativity usually comes with chaos. That's what makes us creative. That's what makes us good at dreaming up a business and executing on it. We've got lots of ideas. That's what makes us great at making and DIYing and all those things, whether it's business or a physical thing, okay? Here's what happens to a lot of creative, chaotic business owners. Number one, start something and you get a little bit of traction and you get, a little bit of something's happening. You get kind of excited, but then you get a new idea because you're like, well, that's fun. And now I've got this new idea. And so then you want to start that. And let me just say that there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, because as women, I do believe 99% of you that are here are women today, but like God literally created us to birth things. This is why I think I love like females in business so much. Our bodies are literally designed to birth humans, all right? And our minds and our the way our hearts are designed, the way our souls are designed, are literally designed a lot of times to build answers to the world's problems. And so we're really good at birthing new ideas. We never struggle with new ideas. Am I right? So then what happens is we see something else and we're like, well, that looks like fun too. I think I could do that also. Or you have people who are asking you to do something different. So then you're thinking, well, maybe I need to shift to that. And before you know it, you've got 27 irons in the fire. You're completely overwhelmed. You're totally burned out and you're not seeing progress and growth in any of the areas. Can anybody relate to that? No shame, by the way. No shame, but let me know in the chat if you can totally relate to that. So I want you to know that this even happens to me, okay? First of all, I don't want you to think that you're alone. And there's no shame in this. Like your brain is literally designed as an entrepreneur to have a million ideas. And so it happens to everyone, including me. During the pandemic, when 2020 started, I got a little bit, well, some of you have followed me long enough to know that right before 2020 hit, I had just launched my book, Fear is Not the Boss of You. I had a 12-city book tour across the United States that was completely canceled 3 weeks before my book came out, and all of my hair was falling out. Does anybody remember that? my hair was getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And everybody's like, are you cutting your hair? And I'm like, no. I think it's stress. I don't know, products, but hair's falling out. So what do you do when that's your life? Well, you decide to start something new. And so since I was bored, we were all worried we're going to die, I decided to start a new Instagram account for Jennifer Allwood Home. So many of you know that my background is working for builders in Kansas City. My painting company did Extreme Home Makeover 3 times. I love houses. My husband, Jason, and I, we have our home in Kansas City. We had a home in Kansas City that we also owned that we actually are closing on and selling this week. And then we have a VRBO in Florida and another in Arizona. So when I say I love homes, like I love homes. So during the chaos of 2020, I thought, okay, well, let me start like a new Instagram account for Jennifer Allwood Home. And then I was like, well, people keep saying you should sell products. And I was like, well, maybe I should do that. Maybe I should start a line of products. And so, we did the research. We found a company that helped us source like home products. So think rugs, candlesticks, all those sorts of things. We started a website and it was fun. It was exciting. It was something new. So I tripped my trigger, right? But we made like hardly any money, you guys, like hardly any money. And so after a year, we closed it down because in the end, it was just not worth the time, the energy, and the effort. But I share it with you because I want you guys to know that I have a creative mind just like you. And I find myself being pulled into other things, which may not be God's call on my life, but because they look fun, they look exciting, etc. So here's what I want you to know, a couple of things about our creative minds, okay? The creative mind is easily distracted. It is so easily distracted. And one of the things that happened during 2020 is our ability to focus and our ability to concentrate was seriously diminished. There are studies that show this. I don't care what you think about the pandemic or, masks or vaccine or anything else. Every doctor agrees our ability to focus and to not be distracted, it really decreased in the year 2020. And think about our kids. Think about how much time we were all glued to the news or glued to our phones, during 2020. And the truth is, like when you have a mind that's easily distracted, I know that distraction really destroys. The enemy of your soul will often use distraction and discouragement to derail entrepreneurs. And so if you are someone who finds yourself being easily distracted, there's a couple just quick little tips for you to walk away with, but we've got to put this away. That's the first thing. This is so distracting to the creative mind, but the reason we love it is because there's dings, there's bells, there's whistles. I can look at Facebook and then I go to Instagram and then I can go to Pinterest and I can hop around and I can check my email and people are texting me. And that feels fun to like hop around as a creative, but this is super distracting. So put your phone away. Number 2, we have to figure out where we focus best. Like, do you focus best in your office? Do you focus best, on a laptop in your bed if you're working from home? Do you focus best if you go to a 1972 library to focus? Because your workplace has to be a place where you can focus at. And if you're trying to go to the next level, I know one time on my podcast, The Jennifer Allwood Show, I interviewed Patricia Washington. If you don't know Patricia Washington, she is amazing. And she said, when she was like creating her office space and decorating it, she asked herself, is this the workspace of a 6-figure-a-year earner? And I'm like, whoa, that's really good, right? Because I can remember when I office out of wherever I had a little bit of space, at the dining room table. And by the way, it's hard to focus then. And that's when, our kids were smaller and they're dangling from the chandelier. So figure out how to give yourself a place and a time where you can focus, where if you need to get a sitter, where you can have boundaries, that will help your easily distracted mind. Okay. Number 2, if you have a very creative mind, you're wired to be multi-passionate. You're wired to think and love and probably be good at a lot of things. So like, let me ask you guys something. I want you to throw humility aside, false humility aside for just a second. But how many of you could list off right now 3 or 4 things that you're pretty stinking good at? Like for me, I know that I can pick out paint colors pretty well. I can decorate a house really good. I can walk into somebody's house and figure out how to redecorate. I can look at somebody's business and figure out how they need to reset things up. I know how to make money. Like there's a couple of things, more than one, that I'm really good at. And so, when God decided to gift you with creativity, it usually was not in just one place and usually not in just one way. So like we can't be surprised as entrepreneurs who are creatives that we are passionate about a lot of things. Like I want you just right now to go, you know what? I'm actually supposed to be multi-passionate. And that explains for some of you a whole lot. There's nothing wrong with you with being multi-passionate. Okay. Here's some things though that you need to know. You can't do like all of the things at once. You can do all the things after you learn how to do one thing really well. That's one way to kind of get your focus back and get your creative mind into alignment. But often we are trying to focus on different things, sometimes in totally different industries. Like you may sell something for an MLM, but then you also like make your own candles and you're thinking you should sell those. And then somebody suggested you start a Bible study. And so you're thinking of doing that, but you also really love this idea of starting a podcast for moms. And so if that's the case, you've just got way too many things. It's okay to be passionate about them, but you're not going to be able to focus on them and make the type of money that you actually want to, okay? Because when you're multi-passionate, we often hop from one thing to the next because we're thinking to ourselves, this feels hard, and so the grass must be greener over there. Then this is hard. Well, let me try this thing. Well, this is hard. I wonder if I heard God wrong. So let's try this. Does that make sense? Okay, Jessica says that is 100% relatable. I'm so glad. There's not a lot of difference in my brain and yours. I just want you to know that. And by the way, can I add something else here? It's not even in my notes, but I really want to talk about this. How many of you here are moms? Can I ask you, put in the chat if you are a mom? Because if you are a mom, you have been trained to multitask and to be multi-passionate because you have to be. And so like you have to be able to do a lot of things and then you enjoy a lot of things all at once. When you're mothers, you just do. Like you learn how to, put on your makeup and feed your kiddos and how to be passionate about reading to your kids and also passionate about, making them homemade food. And you learn that when you are a mom, I seriously think like your brain just explodes in 9 million more directions. Can we just all agree with that? Can we all agree with that? So I know sometimes it looks like the grass is greener in other places. And so when you're thinking about getting to the next level, sometimes it can be tempting to think, I'll just shift and try this thing over here. And that's not a lot of times the case. We are the worst as creatives at thinking that just because we're good at a lot of things and we like a lot of things that we should do all of the things. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. And I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we really need to keep that in our mind, okay? And sometimes when we think we need to do all the things, so somebody asked you to start making candles and, you have that MLM and you got that Bible study you're considering and that lady asked you to do a podcast with her. A lot of times when we are multi-passionate, we will think that we need to say yes to do all of the things because sometimes we're afraid if we don't, well, I'm going to miss out on a little money in my business here, and I'm going to miss out on a little bit of my money here. I can remember back to when we painted houses for a living, and I own my painting company. And people would ask me, but can you do wallpaper? Can you do decorating also? Can you pick out my paint colors too? And there was always this like part of me that wanted to say yes to everything. And for a minute I did. Because in my head, I'm like, well, I can make money off that. I can tell her $300 to, to do a color consultation. Well, I can say yes, that I can put up wallpaper, even though I've never done that before, but I can figure things out. So sometimes we say yes out of a root of fear. And the fear often is because you're afraid you're not going to make money if you let go a few of the things that people are asking you to do. The truth is actually, a lot of times those things make a minuscule amount of money. Like look at my Jennifer Allwood home account, okay? Sometimes we're scared that if we go all in on just one thing to do business with, so we're not going to do the MLM and the candles and the Bible study and the podcast. We're just going to focus on candle making only. And we're worried that if we do just one thing, if we focus on just one thing, what if it's the wrong thing? What if I heard God wrong And what if it fails miserably? Now I put all of my eggs into that one basket. And so now what do I do? Another thing I want you guys to know, here's what happens so often with those of you who are entrepreneurs, and especially with those of you who are creatives. It is not that you have a spirit of rebellion, okay? Can I just say that? It's not that you have a spirit of rebellion, but you don't like being told what to do. If we liked being told what to do, friends, we'd all still be working for somebody else. Can I just say that? Rachel says true. Facts. 100% true. Right. The reason that we are so good at starting businesses and doing things that other people are terrified to do is because we don't like having to be accountable to a boss, to a schedule, to a 9 to 5, to clocking in, to whatever. Am I right? Am I right? Most of you are completely unemployable. You could never go back to a traditional 9 to 5 job. And so when you hear somebody like me say, okay, friends, I love you, but you got to do one thing. You got to focus on one thing. What happens is, as soon as I say that, a normal creative brain will want to start throwing elbows. And you may not say it out loud, but inside, you're already doing this. You're already like, nope, I don't want to focus on just one thing. I want to do what I want to do. I'm really good at a lot of stuff. I like a lot of stuff. I don't want to go in all on one thing. Who can relate to that? Who can relate to not wanting to have to focus on one thing? Because you're like, but I'm good at 10. And I could do 10 and I could be successful at 20. I mean, and it's not coming from a place of pride. It's that God wired you just like that. So a lot of times when I say it's okay to be multi-passionate, but you can't do it all at once. You've got to focus on just one thing for a while. A lot of people don't want to hear that because they're scared, number one. And number two, they don't like hearing that they have to do anything as an entrepreneur. Can I just tell you guys, I want you to know that I get that, okay? I get that. All right. Last thing in terms of being multi-passionate. A lot of you struggle with commitment, not with your spouse, not with letting your yes be a yes and your no being a no, but you struggle with like the commitment of picking one thing and then staying with one thing. And some of you are also possibly struggling with the commitment. You know, God wired you for entrepreneurship, but you still have that 9 to 5 job. In fact, you're sitting at that 9 to 5 job right now, even though you hate it. And you're trying to figure out, how do I make my weekend and night thing take off so that I can get rid of this 9 to 5 that I hate? And so there's a Bible scripture that I just want you to always go back to, okay? And you could take this up with God and not with me, because he said it, not me. But in James 1:8, it says, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. And it doesn't mean man as in male, female. A double-minded person is unstable in other ways. Here's what that means. When you're doing a day job and your night job, it is super hard to do either one really well. It is super difficult to give 100% of your attention to your day job or 100% of attention to your night job. And you're over here in your day job thinking, how does this night job finally take off? And the Lord possibly, maybe not always, but possibly is like, well, friend, if you'd go ahead and let go of that day job and go 100% all in on this thing, you would see the fruits of your labor. But while you're in both, it's impossible for you to give 100% in either place. Does that make sense? Okay. Point number 3 about a creative brain. The creative mind gets very overwhelmed and becomes paralyzed very easily. Who here can totally relate to that? So many creatives, they get to where, they're multi-passionate, they're good at a lot, they have a lot of things that they enjoy, they know that they're good at a lot of things, but they worry about messing something up, making the wrong decision. If you're someone who loves Jesus like I do, you worry that you're hearing from the Lord wrong. And so what inevitably happens is you become overwhelmed and then you just freeze. And so then you do nothing. Who can relate to that? When you get so overwhelmed that you just literally freeze. And I can tell you also that overwhelm and becoming paralyzed, not being able to make decisions in your business, which will take you to the next level, a lot of times too, those come from having too many voices in your life that you're listening to. And you really struggle just to listen to one. Because if you talk to, your Aunt Linda and your cousin Crystal and your sister-in-law Karina and your mom and your 4 best girlfriends, all those are people in my life, about your business, and asking them for feedback, they might all give you completely different answers. And so you've got all these voices in your life. You don't have any clarity. And so inevitably what happens is you feel overwhelmed and you freeze. I want to just remind you today that often we are thinking, okay, I need to get clear and then I'll do. Anybody there right now? If I could just get some clarity, then I would XYZ. Okay. That is completely backwards to both, I believe, the Word of God and entrepreneurship. Because we think if I could just get clear, then I could do. And both the Lord and me as a coach are going to tell you, first you do, and then you get clear. And that's where so many entrepreneurs get it backwards, because clarity comes from the act of doing. We're thinking we've got to figure out the whole path on how to focus in on one thing and how to not become paralyzed and the way we're going to make, this next level income that we want to. And we're thinking, if I can just figure it out, then I'll execute on it. And the truth is you have to execute something and then the clarity comes. And I know that's so hard for so many people, but I love how, I've heard people talk in sermons before that, God can't do anything with a parked car. I think it was Joyce Meyer that said that years ago. He fully trusts that God can steer you when you're in motion. But, you've got to get in motion for there to be any steering to happen. Because when you're just a parked car in the garage, it's impossible to steer that. Am I right? And so clarity always comes from doing and not vice versa. Always. All right. So, and let me tell you, I know some of you here are not relating to the creative mind. And I want you to know that the opposite of a creative mind is a mind that is so laser focused on one thing. You're so laser focused on just the one way of doing things, the way you've always done things, the way that you've seen data and say things that should be done, that you fail to pivot, adjust, and oftentimes you fail to respond to market trends. So what do you do if you are easily distracted, you're multi-passionate, you get overwhelmed, and you get paralyzed? What do you do? And so I want to give you some tips here, okay? First, you're going to have to find your main focus in business for this season. Now, here's why I say this season. It has to be this season because it will often, this is like a creative brain hack, okay? The creative brain hack is, if I tell myself it doesn't have to be this way forever, but just for this season, then you're able to hold your own feet to the fire. Like if you're one of those multi-passionate people and you're like, but I'm also good at this, and I'm also good at that. Like telling yourself, okay, but for this season, I'm just going to focus on the candle making. And in another season, I can add the podcast, I can add the coaching, I can add the whatever. But telling yourself for this season, it's interesting how just those 3 words, for this season, will help take some of the pressure that you might feel when you're multi-passionate, you're good at a whole lot of things, but you don't want to pick one. Does that make sense? This season. What's God got for you in this season? Where's your family at in this season? What's going to put the money in the bank this season? What's going to really launch your business in this season? Because trust me when I say, there will be other seasons if you do stuff well in this season, if you plant your roots deep in this season and you begin to see some fruit out of that, then you earn the right to talk about a lot of other things and to do a lot of other things. So sometimes it's interesting to me because I know people will see me and hear me talking about our rental properties. And I did a 4-part podcast series on starting your first Airbnb or short-term rental. They'll hear me, talking about adoption. They'll hear me talking about home things. And they'll think, okay, well, because she's talking about 5 things, I could talk about 5 things too. And the truth is you really have to get really good at the one thing you get known for and really build the trust of your audience and build the audience and build the income and the income streams that then will allow you to start talking about other things. Does that make sense? I honestly believe that until you're at $100,000 a year, you need to really hone in on your focus, hone in on your area of expertise until you absolutely get known for the one thing. When you hit $100,000 a year, then you can start going, okay, I've been doing the candle making. I don't know why, by the way. Is anybody here a candle maker? Because why am I using that for an example? Not planned, but and maybe I'm planting a seed for somebody. Maybe somebody should be a candle maker. But until you get to $100,000 in sales or $100,000 year or something, focus just on that one thing. It will help you so much. Okay? So here's what I want to ask you. I want to know, and I'd love for you to put in the chat, what is one thing that you are known for? What is the one thing that you think you're really known for right now? If we go back to our, our example of the candle making, the MLM, and the Bible study, the podcast, like what's the one thing? Training horses, marketing, massage, strategy, embroidery. Okay, I love that. If you have a hard time getting clear on what's the one thing that you could be laser focused on in this season, you got to get really clear on that. I want you to go back to, any books that you've read on this. I want you to go back to looking at your sales. Where have you made the money? What do people text you about? What do people send you DMs about? Because the one thing that you need to focus on has to be the something that you either can make a lot of revenue off of or that you have made a lot of money off of and then you could go back to again. If you really want to see what it is that you're known for, go back and look at where you've made money. When we had, the Jennifer Allwood home, and that was just like one piece of the business. And then we had a short-term rental. And then we've got Businesses, my VA agency. Then we've got my coaching. I mean, like 95% of our income here at Team Allwood comes from my business coaching. That's what I'm known for. Yes, I can teach you how to start your own short-term rental. And I do that for free, by the way, because I'm not an expert in that. But, yes, I could try to still do the Jennifer Allwood home thing, but it's not what I'm known for. And if you are really trying to get to the next level in this season, you've got to get known for one thing. Okay. I was saying, I had an example of if you used to sell like a lot of wooden signs, and you had an Etsy shop and you were kicking butt and you're making a ton of signs, you're selling a ton of signs, like, why are you then switching to like wanting to do a Bible study? I mean, it's great that you love Jesus, but remember, just because you love Jesus doesn't mean everything needs to be biblical in your business. We still need sign makers who love the Lord too, but aren't like leading with the Bible. Does that make sense? Like Chick-fil-A. They lead with chicken. They don't lead with Jesus. Hobby Lobby leads with crafts. They don't lead with Jesus. So like, why are you switching to like a Bible study if you used to sell a ton of signs? Like, is God actually telling you to do that? Or is it completely a distraction? Or maybe you sell like clothing online and you've been doing like pop-up shops and your online business is going amazing. You keep making online sales, but your in-person, like your pop-up shop or your brick and mortar is on the struggle bus. And, we've got a couple women who have brick and mortars in my mastermind. And there's been one that we've convinced, like, shut it down. If there's no longer fruit coming from that, and you can look and see that, 80% of my sales are over here. Why are you spending so much time doing something over here that's not producing fruit by way of money into a bank account? Okay. And, I was telling the lady that's in our mastermind, by the way, because she loves having her brick and mortar. And I'm like, I know you do. But what you're also going to love is working a fraction of the hours and making double the money. You're also going to love that. And it doesn't have to necessarily be forever, but for this season. Okay? And it doesn't always have to be, by the way, what you started doing that you go back to, because shifts and pivots are definitely allowed, but it does have to be something that's making money. It has to have income potential, one of the two, okay? For a lot of you here, I think you need to go back to that thing and actually stop doing all of the other things because right now they're distractions. And so that could mean closing things, shutting things down. And let me just tell you that when you do that, sometimes your ego can take a little bit of a hit. And I want to be leading women who are able to look at things. Michelle's got tears. Nikki says, that's me. And are able to go, okay, is this actually good for my business or is this ego? Because we've got to be able to measure that. We've got people in our world who are depending on our businesses to kick butt. So we can't afford to have ego in there. If it's not bringing fruit by way of adding to the business in terms of income, let it go. Let it go. Because there's other things that you could be doing that you can go back to, etc. It wasn't easy for me to admit, that my home line was not as profitable as I wanted it to be. Then I had all this home line stuff. I've got all the rugs and I've got the footstools and I've got the candlesticks. And then, I had to sit and think about it. Okay, what are people going to think was inevitably what bubbles up? And for some of you, that's the thing that's going to bubble up too. And the Bible says that the fear of man is a snare. It's a trap, and it's a trap for your business when you're worried about shutting down parts of it and what are people going to think of it. Does that make sense? Okay. When you find the one thing, I want you to double down on doing that one thing. Here's what I know about creative people. Your flesh will probably fight on that because you might either already be bored or think I'm going to get bored, okay? But here's my question to you. Can you handle being bored if you're bringing in the money that you want to, the next level income that you want to? Can you handle being bored for this season? I can. Some of you don't want to go back maybe to that one thing and double down on it because it may feel like going backwards. So here's what I'd ask you. Are you willing to go backwards if it means going forward in your revenue? I mean, I would say yes to that, right? Here's what I know after we have, I think team let me know, but I'm pretty sure that we are almost at 20,000 women I have coached in the last 10 years. 20,000, that's a lot. It's all of them that have really successful businesses have kept the main thing, the main thing. They've kept the main thing, the main thing. So question number 2. All right, I want you to ask yourself, what's the lowest hanging fruit that you already have to offer that relates to your narrowed down niche that we're talking about in question 1? So question 1 is like, what's the one thing that you are either known for or should be known for? Number 2 is, what's the lowest hanging fruit that you already offer that relates to that? So it's like the lowest hanging fruit is the thing that you already know how to do. You've already sold it. You've already produced it. You already know how to replicate it. You already know how to sell it. Can you double down on that? Like when we were looking at the Jennifer Allwood home account, and we were looking at, where's all the revenue coming from here at Team Allwood? And, we hit the $2 million mark almost 5 years ago in business. So we're doing multi-7 figures a year. And I say that with absolute humility. I give God all the credit for that. But when we look at where's all the revenue coming from? I mean, the lowest hanging fruit is we've got a lot of people like in this program and this program that want a mastermind from me. That's the lowest hanging fruit for us. That's the easiest thing for us to put into existence. We did this like 2 years ago because I already coach. I've already got all of these clients. They're just wanting like live events and they're wanting, closer access. And like, what do you have that's like that? What's like what everybody's already asking for? Or you've already got it in some fashion. You've already produced it that you could literally just double down on. The key is to hone in on that and to like replicate it and scale it somehow. That's the key. Okay. So let me tell you some things that are going to hold you back from finding this kind of focus for the rest of the year. Okay. There's going to be several things here, but we're going to talk about 3 that are going to hold you back from finding that like laser focus for the rest of this year. Number 1 is going to be distractions. Okay. So if the enemy cannot discourage you, he will always come to distract you. And the reason, let me just say this, the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And one of the best ways to steal, kill, and destroy a business and business growth is by distraction, either discouraging the owners or distracting the owners. So if you have distractions, that's going to really hinder your growth the rest of the year. It just is. So some questions like just random here. Like, have you started a podcast or maybe a blog or a YouTube channel or something, but it's not bringing in any income? Like, is that a distraction? Have you added a new product or a new offer of some sort, but it doesn't bring in any money? Maybe it makes you feel good, but it's not bringing in any revenue. Like, that's a distraction. Listen, business is supposed to make money. If your business is not making money, you have a very expensive hobby. And so you need to go back to the things that are bringing in the income. Are you starting like a new branch of your business or a brand new business or a brand new social media account before you've actually gotten good and gotten traction on your first one? Another distraction. Are you using your family. Often we use our children as an excuse as to why we can't grow a business. I knew when our 3 oldest biological children were growing up that God was calling me to stay home and run my painting company from home. I had 8 women who were out in the field working for me, and I knew that that's what I was called to do, but I also knew that I was still supposed to be building the business. I was still supposed to be doing all the marketing. I was still supposed to be doing the emailing. I was still supposed to be getting us, new business. I was still supposed to be doing all the marketing, even with 3 kids at home. And what I knew in my knower is that I was supposed to do it right in front of my kids. Because I think sometimes God asks us to build in front of our children, not even so much for us, but so our kids get a bird's eye view of what that looks like. Listen, I know when you think about, like, how old are some of you in here? Does anybody want to tell me how old they are? I'm 51. I'll tell you that. So when I think of 20 years ago, there were so many fewer entrepreneurs, weren't there? I mean, have you guys noticed that? Like, there are so many more people like doing things for themselves right now. So much more than like 20 years ago. Well, in 20 years, imagine the age of your kiddos. Our kids are 21, 19, 15, and 8. 8, I say that with a giggle every time because I'm like, we will be 600 years old when she graduates high school, Lord. But here's what I know. Imagine in another 20 years, imagine how much more entrepreneurship is even going to be bigger than it is today, especially because the world of education has completely changed since 2020. So traditional like college and stuff for kids, it is going to be completely different in another 20 years. A lot of your children, they are wired for entrepreneurship. They need to see that example at home because I can tell you this, public education is not teaching your kids how to be entrepreneurs. Let them see you do it, mom. Stop using them as an excuse as to why you can't do it now when really that's fear. Because often God's like, I'm not asking you to do one or the other. I'm not asking you to do business or kids. You can do both. There will be times when you need to focus on the business way more than the kids. At times you need to focus on the kids way more than the business. And that's okay. So what are you being distracted by? Number 2, what are the tasks that you're not supposed to be doing? Like, do a lot of you have daily tasks that maybe you think that you have to do? They feel like busy work, but they don't actually give you any more income. Things like writing a blog, writing a newsletter, packing your own boxes if you sell out, if you send physical supplies, replying to every single social media comment you get. Like, those things tend to be busy work and they do not affect your income. What can you stop doing so you have more time just to focus on the income generating activities? Are you wasting time like checking your to-do list, but not actually like focusing on the big things that are going to move the needles? I love lists. Does anybody else love lists? And I love checking stuff off the list. I feel like a baddie. That's what my 15-year-old, that's slang for a goodie. One time she's like, Mom, you're such a baddie. And I'm like, wait, does that mean I'm actually bad or I'm actually good? A baddie is actually good. So I feel like a baddie when I'm checking off, things off of my list. But here's what I've noticed. Sometimes I'm doing the little things, the calling the dentist office, the sending an email to somebody, the making sure that I've put this on my calendar and done this. But the thing that's actually going to move the needle in my business, I just punt that to the next day. And then to the next day, then it goes to the next week and the next month. And before you know it, 2023 is gone. And so are you wasting time checking stuff off your to-do list, but are they not the big things that are actually going to, move the needle? And when you're looking at like tasks that you should not be doing, I want you to think too, some of you need to be hiring. And I told my team a while back that we eventually run out of time or talent as business owners. We get to where we have no more hours in the day. And then we get to no more hours in the day and our family's resenting our business because, we have gotten to where we're missing things. We're at home, but mentally we're not at home. You guys know, if you've started businesses, you know what I'm talking about. And so we either get to where we're running out of time or we get to where we're running out of talent and you no longer, like, you've grown the business as far as you can with the knowledge you have. And you've done it as a one-man band, but now you need to bring somebody in to help you write emails. You need to bring somebody in to help you develop the sales page. You know you need to bring somebody in that's going to help you do, social media content. Should you be hiring somebody? Point number 3. Do you have too many commitments, just basically out of obligation? Now I'm going to step on some toes just as lightly as I can here, okay? But I know that often we say yes to things because we feel like we should. We often say yes to things, especially if they are related to church, because we feel like it's church. I need to say yes. I can remember at one point, because Jason and I are very involved in our local church. We've been at the same church for 24 years. We love our pastors. Our Christian faith is very important to us. And at one point, he was like serving on the committee that planned like the men's events for the years. And I was serving on the committee that planned the women's events. And I was on the creative team. And we served like once a month in Rock Kids, which is like, the children's ministry. And then we were also on this team that we delivered food. Jason would cook, because if you followed me for any length of time, I can't cook, I can eat. I can eat, friends, but I can't cook. So he would cook, I would deliver food. And we just got to where all we were doing. Oh, and we would be on the greet team once a month at church. So we're, the one shaking people's hands, me as the introvert, hi, welcome, kids' church is over here, come on in. And there got to a point where I was like, you know what? And I'm not saying this is what you should do, but we're stopping everything. We're stopping everything. Because I knew that I was called to serve the online space, and serving our local church. People need to do that. There needs to be people serving. And so please know that this was just for our family. I felt convicted that I was supposed to not continue serving at our local church nearly as much as what I was serving people, women, online. That was how I could best use my gifts. And so I'm not saying that that's necessarily what you should do, but for a minute we were over dedicated to serving because it was church related. And I remember thinking, we're just, all we're doing is serving and not seeing each other between serving and business. Like, we find ourselves coming and going. And I knew in my head, I was like, if we were to sit down with our pastor right now, I know he would say, Jennifer, you guys need to protect your marriage way more than you need to make a casserole for another person who just had a baby. So there's that. How many of you have way too many commitments? You're saying yes to the PTA because you're thinking, well, somebody's got to say yes. There are seasons for everything, friends. And when you're in a season of needing to get to the next level in your business, it's not a good time to say yes to stuff that's outside of what you should be doing for this season. Okay? So it's really hard to focus when you are distracted, you're doing a lot of busy work, and you have way too many obligations. So I know we're almost at the top of the hour. I'm going to try to wrap it up quickly here. Team Allwood, tell everybody if they're coming back to the VIP, we're going to start 15 minutes late, okay? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And if you guys are not in the VIP with me, first of all, you should be. I don't even know how to tell you to do that, but I'm going to pray over entrepreneurs there. I'm going to pray for those of you that need focus there. So if you've never been in the VIP room, you need to do that. And I'll take questions there as well, because we're not going to have a lot of time for questions here. But here's what I want for you to do tonight, okay? For some of you, I would love for you to write down all the different things that you are doing in your business on a day-to-day basis. You are the one that's fulfilling the orders, you're packing the boxes, you're sending the receipts, you're doing the things. You're the one that's doing the coaching, writing the social media, writing the emails, developing the sales page. Like, think of all the things that you're doing on a regular basis. And then I want you to look at that list. And I want you to determine how many hours a week for each of those things are you thinking that you're spending. And then I want you to go through that list, because this is eye-opening. And I want you to circle the ones that are actually leading to making money. Now, sometimes this is hard to figure out, because for me, I know I spend several hours a week podcasting. I have the Jennifer Allwood Show that comes out with a new episode every Monday and every Wednesday, right? So that's not generating, we have some podcast sponsors, so that I guess does lead to money, but it's not like somebody listens to my podcast and we can see money coming in by way of coaching immediately. But what it does do is it does lead people to get onto my email list. Podcast listeners are way more dedicated to purchasing the non-podcast listeners. And so sometimes you got to try to kind of weigh that, okay? But there will be things that are on your list that you're doing that aren't actually generating money, but they're making you feel good. I'm doing all the entrepreneur things, pat myself on the back. I'm busy, busy, busy. People are watching me being busy. But the truth is, it's not actually bringing fruit to your business. And I want you to look at those things. Okay. Some of the things I just need you to look at, like the amount of time it takes. I wrote down an example and I had to write it down in my notes here so that I wouldn't mess it up. Okay. Because it's math. So let's say, for instance, I do a lot of coaching for people that want to be consultants. They want to have a membership group and they want to launch a course. Okay. Those are my prime people. So if you have a membership group that's like $27 a month and you have 10 people in it. All right. That's $270. And so let's say it takes you 10 hours a week, or $40 a month to do that. You're making $6.75 an hour when you work on that membership group. Now, let's say you have a 4-week course, and it's $500 and you've already made it. It's like $499. We'll just say $500 for easy math. And you spend an hour a week delivering that content. And every time you launch it, you sell it to 5 people. So you make $2,500. Well, if you do the math there, you're spending 4 hours to make $2,500 or $625 an hour instead of $675 an hour. Do you see what I'm saying? We've got to look at all the things that we're doing and be like, is this where most of the money is coming from? Because some of you, like, you can get to the next level by the end of the year, but you've got to get rid of your time stealers. You've got to get rid of your energy stealers. You've got to focus the majority of your time on the things that make the most money. And everything else, you should either let it go, hire it out, or table it for another time. Table it for the next season. And it's not that you can't do it ever, but you just can't do it now while you're trying to get to the next level. Right now, you need to laser focus on what is not a distraction. What are the things in this business that only I can do? And the things that literally are going to make me the most money. Okay? So I want you to go back and reflect on those 2 things that we talked about. We talked about what's the one thing that you're known for and how can you continue to like focus on that, hone in on that. You need to change your Instagram bio. You need to change your Facebook page so that that's the thing that you're focusing on. You need to take everything else off your website, everything else off your I said Wetsy. I said Wetsy instead of your Etsy. Fun times. But what can you do to like clean up all the things so that you're not muddying the waters for, all of your followers? So I want you to look at that. What's the one thing you're known for and how can you really hone in on that? And number 2, what's your lowest hanging fruit? What would be the easiest way that you could make money right now off of that one thing? Some of you have already been doing it. You've just shifted. You've gotten away from it because you're bored. You got a creative brain. You've got squirrel syndrome and shiny object syndrome both. I mean, is it just me? And that's a good question, Tammy. If you're not known for anything yet, what do you want to be known for? What is going to be your business focus? And laser focus on one thing. I'm only going to focus on helping parents learn how to teach their kids how to homeschool. I'm going to teach parents how to homeschool their kids. Words are hard. But teach parents how to homeschool their kids. I'm only going to focus on that. So I'm not going to also write a Bible study, and I'm not going to also sell a line of, clothing. Like, figure out what's the one thing that you need to get known for. Is that helpful? Was that helpful for anybody today? Did anybody feel like I peered right into your brain and read your mail? Did anybody feel like I totally get you? Because I do, but I also know how easily distracted we are and how it's that laser focus that is often what's missing to get us to the next level. Because what we'll do is we think, okay, I've been doing one thing and it hasn't been the thing that's getting me to the next level, so let me do a different thing instead. And it's like, no. Let's bring it back in. Let's just double down on the things that have been making money and get rid of everything else. That laser focus is often one of the missing pieces. So friends, I hope you found that helpful. I know there is so much that is vying for your attention right now. And I also know that it's going to be really difficult for you to have success in business unless you know where to put your focus. And some of you need a mentor who's going to be able to help you focus and get you there. So listen, it's not too late to join the rest of my boot camp. I've got 3 more amazing sessions planned. Go to jenniferallwood.com/levelup, and I'll see you in the next training. Friend, thank you so much for listening to the podcast again this week. I'm so honored that you come back for every episode and that you share the Jennifer Allwood Show with your friends and family. Every time I see you guys post about it on Instagram or Facebook or something, it just makes me do a little happy. So thank you. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast if you never want to miss an episode. So you can go to
Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or Spotify or any of the other podcasting places, and subscribe each week so that every week you get the new episode when it releases. So just know that I love bringing you relevant content. I love bringing you great guests. And one of the ways you can help us here at Team Allwood is by leaving the podcast a review. So if you have just a second to do that, would you go over and leave a review for the Jennifer Allwood Show? Thank you again. You're amazing. I'm honored to be here. Until next week. Bye-bye.